The seaside brings with it serenity for aquatic lovers. Same goes for Benibo Daboye Bodilon, an environmental activist. He trots along the seashores of Port-Harcourt, a city domiciled in Africa's largest wetland. His smiling face masks a deep worry he nurses. A swipe of his fingers reveals why. A black substance. What is it?
You walk barefooted. Your feet, will be black. Ditto your palm.
The curtains, if you open your window blind, they are all black.
It was naturally made. It's made by us as a human being.
It has many names: smoke fumes, dust particles. One name sticks: the Black Soot. Port-Harcourt, located in the Niger Delta region or South Nigeria, is considered the oil capital of the country. Like most oil-producing areas, environmental degradation has been a common discuss. But for residents of Port-Harcourt, it's different, very different. A polluted atmosphere, sickness, and sometimes death, making it the first real environmental health crisis in the Niger Delta region. Bodilon tells his story.
Okay, it's just like when the COVID pandemic came, people resorted to, native, medicines like taking ginger, garlic, a mixture of both as well, and some other concoctions, so to speak. We're doing all of those things just to, fight COVID. So I personally did something like that when I experienced it, but it didn't solve it. It was only temporarily, and later it, came in full force. So then my both nostrils were blocked. I traveled to Bonny. I couldn't sleep. I think that night, breaking the next day, I couldn't sleep. I was practically struggling, or gasping for air, So I was practically doing that. So I had to come back to Port-Harcourt, and the same thing, repeated. I joined my elder sister to her office, who is a magistrate, and in fact, in the car, throughout the journey from Choba to her office, I was sneezing. The tissue we bought on the roads, I used all. It was like just gushing out like that, So the next day, we went to the military hospital at Aba Road. So there we met an ENT specialist who said that it was acute sinuses. So he was the one that, after his diagnosis, now prescribed certain drugs and, nose drop that I took. That I applied the nose drops and then took the drugs.
Other residents speak of their experiences.
Okay, the soot problem has been a general menace in Port-Harcourt and the wider River State, and indeed it has even been extending to other parts of the Niger Delta region. It's so bad, it's indescribable. For about 6-7 years, if not more, residents of Port-Harcourt and River State have been breathing toxic air, some of the worst air quality on planet Earth, and we're living with this day in, day out. I'm sure that if an audit is done, an X-ray of most residents in Port-Harcourt, we will all be shocked. In fact, they fear that will be triggered by seeing X-ray results, might send some people into shock. Because if you wake up in the morning and you wipe your windowsill, every single day, you'll see that black dust, soot has settled on your windows. Even when your doors and windows are locked, they will seep in somehow. If you leave your floor uncleaned for a day or two and you walk barefooted, your feet will be black. Ditto your palms if you place them on any surface within your house, whether it be GRA or DIOB. So in a sense, Port-Harcourt has been like an open gas chamber.
I was surprised initially when I saw something dropping and it's black, blackish. I tried to capture it in my hands, and then I punched it, it went down, and I saw that it was black. So I was really shocked to see that. And then you wake up in the morning, go to the line, maybe you forgot your clothes at night, and then you wake up in the morning, you see black particles, on the clothes, and then you begin to wonder. But for us, we have lived with it for a very long time now, so we became conversant with it. At some point, you can't take your food outside your house in an open roof environment because it drops on your food. So you begin to wonder, those women that prepare bole on the streets, what's happening. So it's scary, actually, it's scary. At some point, we stopped eating suya, we stopped eating bole because they are exposed, And then it got to a point where we started asking people to mask up, in order to prevent further exposure.
I experienced it. My children, they went through the same pain of the soot. It caused them cough and catarrh, which I spent so much money to treat. The curtains, if you open your window blind, they are all black. A vehicle, it was hazardous anyway. It was not really good for our health. It's harmful. I had cough too. I had cough, which I treated.
Timba for Karani, Mumari can do smoke dudu. Timba for can be mum, Katamino dudu. So the battery by him, I can instead in my way. I can think of coming mum, Maripo dirty. Maripo black.
In the first place when I saw it, I thought this was just a natural weather. Maybe sometime we experience sometime you meet the darkest side of it when rain wants to fall, or when rain wants to show a sign of darkness. All right, but when I saw it, I look at it that way. But when it's something persists continuously, and people have now emphasized on that issue that it is not that naturally weather that used to change weather. You understand me? When some people continue, I have to click on it to understand that yes, there's something that is going on that makes it to change on that area.
Spurred by his experience and with deep concern for public safety, Bodilon teamed up with like minds to start a massive public campaign about the deadly soot through a movement called Action Against Soot in the Niger Delta.
There were complaints online on Facebook that children born without asthma, that non-asthmatic children are having asthma along the area of Odili axis. That was one of the complaints. Then after which I think I traveled to Yenegra because I'm not based in Port-Harcourt. So I traveled to Yenegra and I think I wanted to use the bathroom. And then I discovered that there were soot particles on the floor. And I thought to myself, does it mean that this soot has traveled all the way from River State to Bayelsa State? Something has to be done about it.
Around 2021, it got to a point where it was no longer funny, So just 3 of us came together and said, wow, this whole thing is killing us. What do we do about it? So we started looking for solutions. And we thought about getting other like-minded people into the group. That was how Action Against Soot was bettered.
Surely there has to be some scientific explanation about the black soot in Port-Harcourt.
Black soot is technically called a particulate matter, but in this case it's an inorganic particulate matter, and it is also made up of predominantly carbon, and that's why it's black. But in the case of Port-Harcourt, the Port-Harcourt black soot, that soot has also been they analyzed it and found some chemicals in it, and some of them non-carcinogens like benzene are also in that soot. So the Port-Harcourt black soot is not just carbon, but also carbon with some other chemicals. Some of them are actually non-carcinogens like benzene. In the case of black soot, just as we said, made up of particles that are basically invisible. That's why Port-Harcourt residents, a lot of times, if not for the ones they see airborne, but a lot of the ones that enter their houses, they don't actually see them. In fact, some people will complain, or even say that, some people said that even with closed windows, these particles also entered their houses, and they could. The only way they will know is probably when they clean certain surfaces, and of course the ones that they were able to bring out from their nostrils.
Revelations about the cause of the soot revolve around artisanal oil refining.
Well, according to my own understanding, it's because of this fire that I think that's what I heard about the black soot. They say it's that fire that is causing the black soot. Fire is this crazy now. This one they cook bad. That's what I heard. I don't know. They say all these people that cook crazy.
It was after the birth of COVID. You know, the situation got worse at that time because you remember there were lockdowns, a lot of lockdowns. And during the lockdowns, the artisanal refiners were actually refining a lot of products. So during the lockdown, there is a situation where on the roads, there were no much checks on these guys. So they were passing with ease, you know, taking the product from down south to the north. Now, that gave birth to the, you know, excruciating level of this soot pandemic that we experienced in the Niger Delta, especially in Port-Harcourt. Because most of these, the crude oil, I mean the diesel that are being used in places like Abuja, Kano and the likes, are being refined here. And so the pandemic gave them the free opportunity to, you know, refine these things and then take it down to the north, the south, wherever they are taking the products to, you know. So that was one of the reasons why we saw that there was this increase in the rate of, you know, the soot in the atmosphere.
There are many factors that contribute to the soot. Yes. You understand? So the burning of tires is one of it. The bonfire is also one of it. There is also this asphalt they use for road construction also contributes to it. Burning of woods is also one of it. The indiscriminate burning or improper burning of the refining sites, you know, is part of it.
Another driver of the black soot is gas flaring.
It's an environmental problem, it's a health problem, because if you know, you go to Port-Harcourt. I lived in Port-Harcourt before, so I can talk from experience. I lived there from 2006 to 2010, working with Shell. And then I came back here 2018 as a diplomat. So when I worked with Shell, we were supposed to out the flares. Since that time, 2008, it never happened. And then they had the PIA, the PIB and stuff like that, still is there. Why is it that in Europe, they can't flare gas? In America, they can't flare gas. Yet in Africa, we're flaring gas every day and getting people sick in Port-Harcourt. That's not right.
A technical report released by the Rivers State government in 2019 showed that over 22,000 residents suffered one form of respiratory ailment or another. That same report indicated a 30% rise in morbidity and mortality rate from 2016. In other words, more residents suffered underlying health issues that proved fatal.
I must, on a personal note, I have last year. Last year we buried two cousins within a short period of time, and they all had problem with breathing, respiratory distress, serious respiratory distress, but it's not COVID. So we can call it non-COVID respiratory distress. But they were both smokers. So because of the increased problems created by the soot, they were unable to breathe, and that led to their deaths. And the funniest is that they died within a month of each other. So it was a very serious family bereavement. So just to tell you that. Then the other one has to do with the possibility for cancer. And in the case of the Port-Harcourt soot, it has the capacity to cause cancer. Not only because particulate matter on their own has actually been found to be carcinogenic, but the fact that for the Port-Harcourt soot has that added chemicals. We had the added chemicals like benzene, which on their own have actually been shown to be carcinogenic. But cancers don't happen within 1 or 2 years. Cancers take years to happen. So we will expect the prevalence of cancer in Port-Harcourt and of course the other parts of Niger Delta that are affected to increase probably in the 5-10 years time.
People have marched the streets of Port-Harcourt in the past. This soot has lived with us for years. You understand? It didn't just start last year, 2021. No, we've lived with it for over 5 to 6 years. So even the survey we conducted, there are people who said even 7 years or 8 years. Now we understand the gas flaring thing, also contribute to that. But then, for this particular one, was as a result of the, artisanal refineries, or refiners, aka Bofire.
A World Air Quality Report also showed that at the end of 2020, Port-Harcourt was the 86th most polluted city in the world, with the month of December particularly frightening. Port-Harcourt needed to be saved. Sure enough, the state government swung into action by clamping down on illegal refining sites.
I've called you here to tell you it's a total war. It is either we do it or we don't do it. There's nothing we can do about it. These boys have caused so much for the cartel, have caused so much problems for us. To identify 1, 2 million for anyone, identify one. So go and identify as many as you can. I will pay each one to 2 million, and I'm ready to fight against this. Our people are dying, so we must. And we are giving 48 hours to identify all those areas.
By the end of October 2022, there is a marked difference. The air quality makes for better reading. Going a step further, the Rivers State government has nearly completed the Dr. Peter Odili Cancer and Cardiovascular Disease Diagnostic and Treatment Center in Port-Harcourt. This may indeed show that things are improving, or are they?
I believe, even though I say this anecdotally, I may not have specific data, but the general view is that there's been a small reduction. It's probably too little, is definitely too little, but there's been some reduction, it appears, in the soot menace, but it's still there. There's still a cloud of soot over Port-Harcourt, and it's not acceptable.
There is just one big question. How can the soot be stopped permanently?
It's not as though we don't even have laws. Do you understand? It is not because we do not have laws. There are laws. Laws to punish those who flout the laws or go again or violate it. There are such laws. There should be some, punishment for bad behavior, right? Yes, there should be something like that. But when you don't punish people, you encourage more people to do the same thing. We cannot continue be talking about A, B, C when the government, it's the government. There is nothing it still falls back to them.
Who pays? Who pays? Who pays? And that's, I hope one day we'll move to we'll move to that point where perhaps we have to also be looking at class action, forcing the polluter, forcing the polluter. We can even force the government to take responsibility. Yeah, to take responsibility, because these people will need to, since it's Port-Harcourt wide, will have to, there should be a screening program to make sure that people are detected early and appropriate preventive measures taken.
It's still trying to curtail the cooking of the crude oil that we used to have our coal fires. That was what really brought about the soot. So let's empower youth so that they can come down on trying to refine petroleum products by themselves. I think with that, they can give them another better option, things to do. Maybe forgo cooking crude oil because they are not professional in it. So by the time they flare all those smoke into the atmosphere, it will be dangerous to our health, even to them as well.
Port-Harcourt may have been cleaned up. The refiners may have left town, but only changed the dress. What becomes of them?
Experts have also suggested that there's such a thing as cellular refineries, which can be done on a much smaller scale. So you can proliferate that across the region and, just absorb a big part of the problem. Is the will there, the imagination, the capacity, even the collaboration, the coordination, because we have a culture, a governmental culture in Nigeria of agencies working in silos. So there is even no collaboration. You don't see that collaboration between NNPC, NDDC, Amnesty Program, maybe the Economic Planning and Budget Office, state governments, to say, look, this is a cross-cutting problem, and the solution to it can only be cross-cutting.
Having a modular refinery means that the local players have to come together, and then everybody on a round table can factor out what works for everybody. And then it means that the government too will be liberalizing the ownership, of the crude.
Saving lives requires changing attitude with the right interventions. For residents of Port-Harcourt, the protection of humanity and the environment is a task that must be fulfilled. Ending the soot permanently could bode well for the wholesale restoration of the Niger Delta region.